Hey Sophie.
Hi, Rob.
Let's give it a few more minutes, see if Hendrick's joining. I know he wanted to go over the key discussion again. All right, I've reached out to Hendrick. Hopefully he responds soon and joins. I figured that's what this meeting was mostly going to be about, was just going to continue our key discussion from last week. Um, but yeah, it's almost 5 past the hour now, so we can go ahead and get started. Um, so basically, just we had a couple updates on the uh, JS and Rust platform work. It sounds like Roger was able to go through and get the JavaScript SDK updated. Basically, he was just changing how publishing was going to work. I think he was going to publish the Hiero ledger first instead of Hashgraph, just in preparation for the full cutover in January. It sounded like he was able to get that going good. And then Rust, I believe they're putting off for another couple weeks. because they wanted to wait to get a nice clean slate with a new release, and it didn't seem like Rust was going to be publishing a release this sprint. So we're just gonna kind of wait on that. Um, but no other real updates there. The key discussion, Rohit, I see you joined. Thanks for joining. The kind of the discussion we were having last week about this was basically we're trying to come up with, or we're starting discussions on what a version 3 SDK would look like. And we had a good discussion on keys and how to um, basically make keys in the SDKs, and basically is, what's the best way. Well, we wanted an easy way for users to that basically don't know a lot about keys to be able to just create a key and use it in the SDK. But then we also realized that um, uh, creating keys and encoding keys can get pretty complicated pretty quickly, especially with just like understanding, the different encodings and how different keys were structured. So we had a good discussion on kind of what we kind of wanted this to look like. And basically, we just wanted to pick your brain, Rohit, a little bit on your thoughts and kind of, I don't want to say like future-proof us, but um, we know that more keys are going to be added to the network at some point, and basically we want to come up with a way to uh, when these new keys get added, basically allow us to, or whatever we come up with right now, to still be usable. Um, so give me one second. I can kind of explicitly or more explicitly describe it for you. Give me one second here. Um, sorry, just pulling some stuff up here. So get rid of that. So basically, kind of what we had originally come up with, basically two sort of APIs that we want to expose. So they both kind of looked like this. Key algorithm. Okay. Um, so we had two APIs that we were thinking about exposing first. So the simple key create, which basically just takes any, string of bytes, like DER encoded, hex encoded, whatever, and it's basically like a uh, just kind of quote unquote try your best method. So um, in here we were thinking basically we would want this method to try and understand the encoding, whether that's hex, DER, raw, whatever. Basically try its best to understand it that way, but then basically default back to like a ECDSA key. So like if it wasn't able to figure out the encoding, uh, or basically because we know that like if a key is like DER encoded, like you're able to kind of figure out like the algorithm based on that. But if, for example, we just get like a string of bytes and they're not DER encoded anyway, or they're just raw, it's like we can't really figure out what the encoding of the key is that way. So basically, we would just do something like default ECDSA. And this is kind of just like the easy method that we were thinking. But then in this one, this would basically allow the user to input their string of bytes, but then also specify exactly how it's encoded and what the algorithm or the key algorithm or the algorithm of that key is. So basically, this would look something like OX whatever, or it doesn't have to be OX uh, encode either. But then encoding could be DER, and then algorithm would be like ECDSA or something like that. Um, so this is kind of what we were thinking. I think again, Rohit, we kind of wanted to pick your brain and uh, with all the different uh, encodings that keys can have, the algorithms, I mean, we only have two right now, but we're not exactly sure how much more that's going to be down the line. Basically, we kind of wanted to get your input on this and see if there are like any uh, I guess sort of ways to determine what keys are based on other encodings, or we're basically just trying to figure out what the best way is to do this. And um, yeah, just any insight that you may have like could be valuable on helping us out here.
Okay, so just to clarify, S here is a key that's already been generated somewhere else, and the user is importing it. It's not entropy, right? It's an already encoded key that's coming from somewhere.
Yeah. So this would just be like a hex encoded key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately, okay. So yeah, you're right. So there are ways to encode keys that have the metadata that you need. I think PKCS8 is a very popular encoding, which tells you what is the algorithm, what is the curve, whether it's a private key or a public key, basically all the information you need to get a precise uh, key out of it. Now, if it's not encoded in that, if it's just like for example the raw bytes of the key,
Mhm.
so yeah, that could be dir encoded. But unfortunately, you wouldn't know, for example, if it's an ECDSA key versus an ED25519 key, because they're both 32 byte keys, and um, there's a huge overlap in terms of their private key set. So, given a specific key, I wouldn't know which algorithm it's for. Now, if you think ECDSA is a reasonable default, sure, we can do that. Um, but there could be problems because if someone accidentally messes up and brings over an ED25519 key and that defaults as an ECDSA key,
Mhm.
I mean, it's not a huge security problem in most cases, but it's just like a software problem. Like they wouldn't be able to make transactions.
Mhm.
Um,
Just want to clarify. So were you saying that DER encode keys they maybe don't have enough metadata in them to determine what the algorithm is for that key?
so DER by itself, so I might be wrong about some of these things, but from what I know, DER by itself is just a encoding format. It's a yeah, I think it's basically a binary encoding. And but before you do DER, there has to be some mechanism. So you either DER encode raw bytes of the secret key, so the 32 bytes ECDSA key, you can feed it to DER, and that's fine. In which case, you are relying on the application context to know that it's an ECDSA key. But alternatively, you first encode using PKCS8, and what you get out of PKCS8, that if you dir encode it, uh, then when you decode it, oh, it's a PKCS8 string, and it has all the metadata that it's ECDSA with SecP curve, whatever. Yeah.
Hmm. So okay, so I guess maybe my understanding before of DER encoding was it more or less you kind of just have, your raw key bytes, and then you just slap a couple more bytes on the front or the back that basically I don't know, kind of has that metadata, like the curve
Sure.
information, and all that. So is that not
That's fine too. Yeah, yeah. You don't need to do a standard thing because if you know most of the time it's going to be like one of three things, maybe you can just do a custom encoding yourself. Uh, PKCS 8 is a pretty popular choice. Yeah, I mean, unless you're very conscious about like sizes and all, like that's a pretty popular choice. Like Keith has his hand up, so yeah.
Yeah, Keith.
Well, I think this is a big when it's a good time to get specific. So like now I'm way out of my element here, but like as from my memory, there are many different types of deer encodings, but our libraries use deer encoding according to I don't know, the ASN1 standard. I mean, I think we need to talk about not just deer encodings, but also the standards in which the deer encodings are based upon. Am I right or wrong on that one, Rohit?
You're right. So ASN1 is yeah, actually I'm not familiar with the other ones because I almost always see ASN1. Yeah,
But
I
it's
don't know
just
what the alternatives are. Yeah.
It's to say, Rob, I think it's a complicated world, and I think that we first have to start inventorying our own. Like, we should be able to say, okay, well, our library, we use an ASN1 library. I mean, when you generate a key in their SDKs, that's what the output is, a deer encoded key according to ASN1. We also do in the portal, we have for ECDSA, we have hex encoded. We call it hex encoded, but it's hex encoded with the 0x prefix. Which I know is the same thing, but we put a 0x prefix on it. I just think it would be a useful exercise to inventory. We can start by inventorying all the keys that we generate and we support and what standards they are based upon.
Mm, yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it might be, yeah, 'cause I don't know for sure. Yeah, just because I haven't, kind of gone through like uh like code sort of audit, I suppose, on exactly like how all the libraries that all our SDKs use like generate their keys. Um, but yeah, I think that there might be some discrepancies there between SDKs because again, I know we've had problems in the past where you can generate a key in one SDK, but then it's not recognized in another. So that very well could just be different DER encodings. Yeah.
So
Are you talking about interoperability with other wallets?
Or not even necessarily other wallets, but like you can generate a key in like JavaScript, the JavaScript SDK, and then try and import it into like Java, and it doesn't recognize it.
Uh-huh.
So I think the deer encodings were different on those. Like the or like Etsy ones for like as example, like OpenSSL would generate like this huge like string or key string, and I remember there was some tool online that I used as like you could like kind of parse it and see exactly like what was encoded in there, and like you could see like the curve information and everything, but then like you could generate another key and another SDK and plug it in there as well, and it was like pretty much the same information, just kind of organized differently, like in the bytes. So it's tough because we're kind of like yes, it would be great to have them all, be encoded the same way. And honestly, it's like it's kind of needed if we want, interoperability between the SDKs, but or also kind of at the whim of just whatever crypto libraries are out there and available, in whatever way like they
well,
do it.
well, this is what I would say, Rob. I would say my recommendation is we inventory all of the keys that we use today, and then I think we would want to inventory all the keys that we want to support. And because I don't think it's a long list, I think basically the main keys we want to support are keys coming from the outside in the EVM ecosystem, which are almost all ECDSA keys with the hex encoded with the 0x prefix. I mean, I do actually think there's strong interoperability in the EVM ecosystem for key material. And then you would just put a line on it and just say, okay, well, and that's what we're going to support. We're not going to, because there's a gazillion other ways to encode these keys. We're not going to support, like, that's it. We're not going to support any of the other ones. Because it's too there's too many. I mean, that would be my kind of first pass.
Well, is that like formally decided? Like Hendrik last week gave me the impression that there were going to be more keys that we would support down the line, like quantum keys or something else. Which I mean may very well be a completely different discussion than the one we're having now. But I mean that's just like something I don't really know about. But I think the idea here was we were just trying to come up with something that we could use now, but then would also be forward compatible with whatever we do down the line.
Yeah, I would argue that that'd be yes, maybe in the future we add a quantum safe key, but then it's the same process. We inventory what keys we support. We inventory what keys are out there that we want to like what third-party keys other libraries create that we want to support. And that would be maybe in that case quantum libraries, third-party quantum libraries. And then we just say, okay, that's it. That's all we're going to support.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's 100%. Yeah, I mean that's stuff we can do, we can figure out, underneath our API surface. But I think the coming up with the API surface that, we can allow quantum keys to be used or whichever keys we may want to add and still being able to pipe it through this API that we come up with. I think that's what we're just trying to come up with right now, basically making it forward compatible.
Rohit, I want to come back on something you said because I thought that was super interesting. I didn't know there was overlap between I didn't know that you could have the same private key for both ECDSA and ED25119, and that's significant. Like even I would have thought that like our algorithms, because we get a private key and we generate the public key and all that stuff. I would have thought that those would start breaking down. Is there really there's that is it? I just want to clarify. There is overlap between you could have the same private key for both algorithms.
Yes, but yeah, the public key has a lot less overlap because uh, you map the private key to a public key, and uh, yeah, typically from the public key, it's very unlikely that a elliptic curve point on for ECDSA will overlap with the curve point for at 25519. But for the private key, yeah, there's a strong overlap. Yeah.
So I want to call this tickets of that, Rob. If that's true, then we cannot have a system where you can just input, like you can put anything and we'll identify it. And no, I think that means that we have to stick with our current model where we say, this is an ECDSA key or this is an ED25119 key, where we are stuck in that paradigm.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think the idea last week too was that we thought that we would be able to figure out the key algorithm based on the DER. Like if a user used this function, for example, just simple create with just a string, the function will be able to determine if the key is DER encoded or not. And if it is, then it would be able to figure out the algorithm based on that. So you could input like a DER encoded like ED25519 or DER encode ECDSA. It would be able to figure out the algorithm that way. But if it can't figure out what it is, then at that point it would just try and parse it as an ECDSA key, and then if it can't parse it, then it just throws an error. I think that's kind of where we left it, and I think we wanted to make sure that that was also valid, Rohit.
So that's true, except as Keith mentioned, only if you use a format like ASN1 uh, or something like PKCS8. Yeah, I think PKCS8 is probably the same uses ASN1. I might be misremembering things, but yeah, that's what's really telling us what the algorithm in the curve is. Uh, uh, the ASN1, which of course that can be combined with the DER encoding mechanism. Um, but the ASN1 format is what has all that information.
Okay. Okay, so it's
And I'm pretty sure the SDKs, like a lot of the popular SDKs, I would imagine they support that encoding because it's a pretty popular one. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, that's that's an interesting one, Rahul, because when I went out there and looking for third-party tooling to support the same DER encoding that we use, I think we had this conversation a couple of years ago. I actually did not find a lot of third-party tooling that could give me the same output that our SDK did. I
Hmm.
struggled. I mean, and actually, this is why I wanted to do actually more investigation because I'm actually very curious what libraries our SDKs are using because I could not find it out there.
Yeah, that is surprising. So for okay, on the Java side, do we use something like Bouncy Castle? I mean, that would for sure have those encodings.
I believe it does, yes.
Okay. So yeah, yeah, maybe yeah, as Keith you mentioned, it would be useful exercise to catalog what we're doing now in terms of these library choices and maybe migrate to ones that support the formats we want.
Yeah,
Okay.
my feeling at the time was not only are we using a specific deer encoding algorithm, but we also have some specific settings on.
Hmm.
Uh, so um so basically we want libraries that have consistent ASN1 DER encoding. Uh it sorry, it is ASN1 PKCS8 or are they different?
Um, Actually, probably shouldn't say anything in this wrong, but either PKCS8 uses ASN. It's basically ASN1. Uh, okay, I think forget about PKCS8. Yeah, I think ASN1 is yeah that's
Okay.
yeah. Sorry, I might have confused things. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But it is to say, Rob, that just to say that something is deer encoding doesn't mean a lot. I mean, again, from my memory, you have to actually be a lot more specific about what it is you're talking about. I mean, like this is just a terrible world where like there's just a lot of variability.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just like my lack of knowledge of, you know, of key encodings and such. It's yeah, in my mind, it's always been like I didn't know that there were different. Well, I mean, I guess having kind of gone through this at some point where I noticed the DER encodings were different, there's obviously, variation in that. But yeah, I think if we can find like consistency or let's see, let's say consistent. AS1 DER encoding. Um, yeah, I mean, then that's just like, our standard that we can have if as long as all the SDKs are doing the same thing, then we'll be able to parse them all how we want and consistently amongst each other, right?
But I think my meta point here, Rob, is that I think we need to be kind of narrow down what problem we're trying to solve because our people, again, if you use one of these like cryptographic libraries, you could create keys with 1,000 different variations. And I don't think we're saying we want to support every single variation of a key that a cryptographic library could generate. I think though I think what I'm more like a bouncy castle library, but I think what we do want to say is like, oh, if my MetaMask generates a key, we can support that key. Okay, 1,000% I support that. And then, like, if there's wallets out there that support, let's say, ED25119 key generation, and there must be a couple because, like, I think, uh, there's a few chains that support ED25119 that we would support the encoding from those popular wallets.
Hmm.
But I think like that's how you kind of have to limit the subset because otherwise I mean, I think if it's just like we're going to support every encoding and is whatever bouncy castle, then good luck. But if we say well, we want to support every encoding supported by MetaMask, okay, well that's doable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that 100% agree. Yeah, I think again, it's like even like the libraries we use I don't think those support, everything. And yeah, I agree. I don't think we want to support everything. I'm more so just want there to be consistency between SDKs and how they handle it. Like you should be able to work with the same key in all SDKs, and all SDKs should, behave the same. Which I think for the most part they do. There might just be uh, you know uh, maybe corner cases here and there. Um, but yeah, I think we could definitely do like an audit on this, I think, and yeah, make sure everything's how we want it to be. Um, yeah, I guess maybe we would want to have maybe a more broad discussion on this. Maybe like bring in Simi or whoever, and kind of more narrow down the encodings that we want to support, and come up with our plan there.
I'll just make one other quick comment, Rob, is that if at some point we do something like add quantum keys, like that is a major update to the entire network. So, that would be a major hit where we would be, it would be 3 months of effort by the entire organization. So it's just to say like that, it's not like that just occurs out of nowhere. That's like something that will be happening with a lot of announced warning and thought and effort.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah, I think it's more so like if we want to add them, like if we can try and design an API now that where we can add those, and it's not a complete breaking change, like we won't need to do like a V4 or something, then we should still strive to do that if we can. So yeah, again, it's just design the APIs with that in mind. Yeah, just making it as forward compatible as we can, which I think for the most part, like I think this right here is good. It's more so a question of how we just want to do this. Because I mean, with this, like if we just have a couple enums here, like then it's like we just add values to the enum, and then process those enums under the hood, and you know it's 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 all good. Uh, yeah, it's just a matter of just kind of what we can do here, and if this is sufficient enough. Because again, yeah, like what we talked about last week, like Hendrik made a good point. It's like, or I forget if it was Hendrik or maybe it was you, Keith, but it's like, yeah, we don't want our users to have to become cryptography experts to use keys. So we need to keep it simple, but also allow the full breadth of our capability to be um, you know, used.
So I don't think post-quantum will present a huge challenge. Well, the challenge with post-quantum would be finding because the number of libraries in that space are probably limited, so it's not as mature as the existing algorithms. So maybe some of them may not be exporting stuff out in ASN1 encoding, so maybe we'll have to do something custom for different languages. But as far as like the formatting goes, we can still use whatever choice we make here, ASN1 plus dir. Yeah.
Mhm.
And Rob, just I want to come back and talk about the user story. So like, the big change I think we're talking about, okay, so we're talking about one change where you'd be able to specify today, again, maybe the baseline. Today you can only specify if it's ECDSA or use 2519. So we're actually talking about one change where you can specify not only the encoding, but also or you can specify the key type and the encoding. But the other change we're talking about is, oh, well, if you input a dear encoded key, you don't need to specify what it is, and we'll just detect it and take action. And I think my counter to that is I could never create a dear encoded key outside of our SDKs that our SDKs would accept. So maybe other people can, but like it's just like, I think, if no one can create a dear encoded key from outside to bring in, then it's kind of a useless story because you can't even do the thing that we're saying that we want to build new functionality to do.
Well, yeah, I think that was the point of kind of our defaulting to whatever the most common use case is, which it sounds like it's ECDSA. Um, to be able to, yeah, because you're probably right. Like a majority of users are just gonna have their just raw encoded ECDSA 0x encoded or not, and plug it in there and expect it to just work. And that's probably what it's gonna be like, 95% of the time. So um, if that's what we should aim for with this, and I think that's kind of why defaulting to ECDSA was our decision there. And maybe that's just what it should be. Like maybe trying to do any special DER encoding processing here maybe is too much, and maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we want to reserve that for what we have down here. Um, but yeah, at least how it is, how I see it in my mind. It's like if we can do that, um, if we should try and figure out as much information from whatever's input here as we can, and then try and process it how we want to. But if not, then just do what 95% of the use case is going to be, right? Um, yeah, so that's my thought at least on that. Um, okay, cool. So I think what we need to do now is look more closely at what SDK crypto or the crypto libraries that SDKs are using, kind of do an audit on them, see what their encodings are, like how they're doing it, and basically just try and build some consistency there amongst themselves, but also like you were saying, Keith, like yeah, there's probably gonna be a lot of users just coming over using a MetaMask wallet, that are just gonna want to plug it into a function and have it work. And we want to be able to make sure that we support that. So okay, I'll work with Hendrik and probably be reaching out to you, Rohit, a little bit more. Because I'm sure I'll be having more questions about everything. So um, yeah, I'll take the action to look at this a little bit more, and maybe we can come back and discuss more either next week or in the coming weeks at least. All right, cool. I think so Keith, I put down the sample code guide again here. I think you were going to send the link out to that. Were you able to get that out to uh most people?
Oh, no, I apologize. I thought for this one you had already posted it in the SDK collaboration hub. Is that true or not true?
Uh yes, I was going to do that and I didn't. So I will look to do that as well. Okay, yeah, okay, that'll work. Yeah, so I can like put something there, and then I can just uh well, probably won't be able to
Well,
link
well,
Google.
to be fair, it's a Google Sheets document that no one will be able to access. So maybe we gotta convert it into a markdown and then bring it in. So maybe I can work with you offline on that.
Okay. Yeah, I can come up with something and just like send it to you to review it. So, um, okay, cool. And then sounds good there. Sophie, you wanted to talk about Hacktoberfest?
Hi. Yeah, that would be great. I've already had the opportunity to speak to a couple of you about my thoughts. This will just be probably adding on to that. Where did I put it? Okay, 1 second. I made a presentation.
Oh, do you want to share your screen?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm very proud of my presentation because
Love it.
usually I just talk my way through these things. Not particularly stylish, but I think it sort of does the job. Okay, so I want to talk about Hacktoberfest, what happened in the Python SDK during Hacktoberfest, the lessons that we learned, and our next steps, what's coming up next. So, basically, I will have the hypothesis that we are going to need to work on some training and some automation. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I'm thinking, how we can do that, and why we need it. So our Python SDK maintainer and committer team is like so. And we are mostly volunteers working part-time or less on it. Depends. In Hacktoberfest, we were able to step up. But yeah, this is a team so far. We've been able to onboard Manish during Hacktoberfest, right towards the end, who had been making contributions before. So yeah, we're able to improve our reviewer process with that. But we are still a little bit low on maintainers and committers. So to give you an overview of what happened during Hacktoberfest, our SDK activity increased by 660%. We were going from an average of 5 commits per week. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got some claps there that I see, to 38 in a single week. And to be honest, it could have been more. I personally had a live event in the first week of October, so I was unable to really do too much then. But overall, we ended up with 74 merged pull requests and 39 unique authors. So these were first contributors. You can see our 2 new releases in October. We have quite a long list. I spoke with quite a few of these in helping them with their PRs, and I learned more about who they were. Wait, I'm skipping over because, yeah. They're mostly computer science graduates or students. And so that means they already have some developer experience, and they are very motivated. They are lovely, really nice to speak to. They're so grateful for help, for the opportunity. And yeah, they already know how to code. So that's who they are. Okay, so I also want to talk about how we were able to get these 39 new developers in October. And we've also been able to continue attracting new developers in November. So I will talk about how this is being done. So firstly, in our tags, we have tags I think are important is saying it's Python, because many people will look for good first issues for a certain language. One of the reasons why we attract lots of new developers is that I'm wanting to improve my Python knowledge. From these tags, it's very easy to see that it's about distributed ledger technology, about blockchain technology. And I also have some good first issue tags, and we had the Hacktoberfest tags. And we were creating around 6 to 7, 8 new issues per day. So this meant in people's queries for good first issues, we were on the first page quite often. So they would get picked up, they would get seen. Sorry, for them to actually, okay, hang on. This is showing you that we were on the first page for good first issues for a Python project, showing the importance of that Python tag. That was when it was recently updated. We're not on that first page anymore. And as Hendrik has shown you in the past, that we attracted these 39 new developers also because of the excellent documentation that has been provided for Hiero, with the problem, the solution, the implementation. We did as best as we could. It wasn't perfect all the time, but that was still better than a lot of the other good first issues documentation. So that was really instrumental in attracting the new developers. And as you can see, a lot of them were able to create these good first issues, solve them, create the pull request, and actually get it merged. We also gave really good feedback. So it was timely, it was informative, it was helpful. So here is an example that we identified the issue. Hey, your commits are not verified. These are the key steps to do it. And here's the documentation to help you to be able to fix that. So we created a lot of documentation to be able to link to. Okay, so sorry, apologies for the lack of visual. The slides are not as nice as I would want them to be. But yeah, we learned that Hiero is really able to attract new developers. There's way more developers than we can handle. And they are skilled computer science students or graduates. They are curious and they are hardworking and they are, really grateful for the help and the documentation that we have. Now we get into the stage where some of them are actually wanting to attempt some of the harder transactions. And here is where I am needing some help from the broader Hiero community. So we need some kind of Hiero specific training to be able to transition a lot of these new developers into feeling like they are confident crypto developers. For example, there's a lot of Hiero specific knowledge that developers have to acquire. You need to know about the token module, the consensus module, transactions, accounts. For example, if you're trying to create an example script for token mint, you're going to be pulling in lots and lots of different modules, different files, and you will need to understand them. This was maybe more manageable when I joined the Python SDK, which was a mini Python SDK back last year when Nadine started it. But now we have, I think we have like 40 different services and things. So now it's quite complicated to get started, but it's not necessarily difficult. It's just maybe like a lack of understanding of how these function together and so on. We have extensive examples already, but I think it's a big time investment for somebody to pass through all of the files to really be able to understand them before just writing an example script. This slide shows that we still have activity 3x the prior to October activity. So many of these developers are not just here for Hacktoberfest, or maybe they were, but now they are. They've had a positive experience and they're sticking around. It's also exam season, and we haven't been creating as many good first issues before. We still have them. So activity has dropped slightly, but it's still 3 times what it was before. This is showing you that we have 115 merged pull requests in the last month. That's between us 2 maintainers and 1 new committer in the last week or so. So what we found from this is basically it's not sustainable to be able to onboard all these new developers and all these pull requests. We were working all the time to be able to do this. So for the last few minutes, I want to talk about some solutions that we are thinking about to be able to scale maintainer time now that the marketing side of it is for developers isn't really a concern to us at the moment. I'll go back to the training ideas. So here is an example of something that we could automate to be able to make maintaining more scalable. So it's a little robot that says, hey, your commits aren't verified. We need them to be verified to be able to merge your pull request. And importantly, we have the links to all the documentation so that you are able to solve this issue yourself. And this would just arrive as soon as the person creates a pull request where any of the commits are not verified. So this bot is working, but it's not yet merged. So that is one idea that we have. I found I was spending some weeks, 50% of my time on PR quality issues that were related to just the Hiero workflow elements, like the verification status and and certain checks, signing and things like this. This is another example. You could just have like a robot saying, hey, some of the unit tests or the integration tests or whatever didn't work. This one is still in development. These might end up being the same scripts, but it's a little bit different, but there's introduction to what it could be. We're thinking about having a way of running all of the examples all at once, because currently we don't have a way of checking all our examples work. We have relied on checking all of them manually. And when there's updates to the SDK, obviously they are brittle, they can change. So this would be some kind of workflow that would run through all the examples. That would mean somebody that creates a new example that will automatically be checked for them. And then we have some robot saying, hey, it failed the check, the example doesn't run. So we're thinking about automating a lot of these good first issues process. Another problem that we had, another challenge that we had, was trying to think of enough good first issues, 116 good first issues to be able to create quickly and easily. So, there's a chat. Is it TCK cover the Python SDK? Keith, I am not familiar with the TCK, but I did hear about the TCK last week.
I do think that someone worked on an SDK server for that for Python like a while ago. I don't know the status of it now, but I think the work was at least started on a branch at some point. I don't know if that got merged or not.
Yeah, I'd like to learn more about that. I think possibly some of these things could be part of the TCK, but I need to learn more about that. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have some safety, but why don't you finish and then I'll raise my points.
Okay, thanks. So we had problems in finding enough good first issues. So I created a script that basically renames examples, puts them in the file structure of our SRC, and then from that identifies what SRC files don't have matching examples. And we found quite a few. Some of them are actually design choices. So it's debatable whether we would actually want examples for things that are not user-facing, but could be SDK developer-facing. So anyway, that's a really good first issue, is just adding examples. My personal view on it is, yeah, we should have loads of examples. And then another thing is to pull the fields from the proto and match it with the fields that are in your SRC files that you have actually created, the methods. So this is a script that will help us to figure out really quickly what's in all your transactions. So for example, token dissociate here has set account ID and add token ID. And then it says from the proto, hey, should you have set token IDs? And so that's a good first issue that we created based on that. So this won't be able to be automatic, but it will be able to reduce the time spent on that quite a lot. And then I need help to train developers. So here are some ideas to do it. We could have more webinars with experts, such as protobufs and serialization, the importance to Hiero. We could do LFDT meetup events. They have 130,000 followers in lots and lots of different countries. So one idea I have is a Hiero meetup, for example, in London, where Python AI and DLT technology cross paths. So that would be extremely interesting and informative to people to see how all these technologies could overlap. I would also suggest some kind of training course that would guide people on how to set up their Hiero portal account, create their M file, learn about the open source contribution workflows, for example, designing, this kind of thing. The things I mentioned haven't really been too much of a problem, but the rest of it is more of a problem. How to understand the account module, the token module, all of these things. So that could be part of a course. We have lots of experts, so I envisage that might not be too hard to do like a rough mockup. That's the end of my presentation. So basically, we've learned creating good first issues pulls in many new developers and still does. But we have problems scaling our maintainers. So our ideas are to automate workflows, and we need advanced training. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophie. That's amazing. Amazing progress and amazing contributions. And so I think my questions are around the spirit of, Simi and I were talking about this last week about in 2020. Overall, we feel like I feel that the Python SDK is growing in importance, especially in the AI world. The Python SDK is becoming more and more important for the Hedera ecosystem. And therefore, I think the question was, how can we better support the Python SDK? And so my first question is, and we don't need to answer this now, but this was one of my homework assignments, was like, what are currently the deltas between, let's say, one of our mainstream SDKs, like the JavaScript SDK versus the Python SDK? Like, what functionality is maybe the Python SDK missing from one of our more officially supported SDKs, like the JavaScript SDK? And then what can we do to help close that gap? And, from your presentation, it sounds like, we could look at doing things like more formally integrating the Python SDK into our TCK to give you more kind of reliable testing. But yeah, I would love to continue, what other things can we do? And I think one of the things we thought about is, well, do we need to put more, let's say, hash graph resources on the Python SDK? I know that we did that previously to try to bring it up to speed quickly, but like, do we need to long term bring some more dedicated resources to the Python SDK? I wonder what your thoughts are on all of that, again, in the spirit of 2026 planning.
Okay, I think we need more help to automate more things, if that's through the TCK, if that's through Hashgraph, that would be ideal. So we need more automation to understand what we're missing in the SRC files, for example. So comparing the JavaScript and the Python one, I have looked at it, and I was actually trying to find a way of pulling the JavaScript transactions and comparing them. And essentially, the JavaScript SDK just has more functionality in a given transaction. But we tend to have the same sort of transactions. And they do a little bit more of like the two protobufs and a couple more of the robustness checks. In terms of AI functionality, I don't know how useful that would be. Maybe, we are actually making quite good strides in the Python SDK to improve examples so that anyone using AI or anyone, building with AI will be able to see like a really solid structure on how to create all these different transactions.
Okay. I don't know, Rob, if you had any thoughts, but yeah, this was a conversation we were having with Simi. It's like, yeah, how can we support the Python SDK community to bring it up on par, I guess, eventually with the JavaScript SDK, but then also just maybe supporting some of these issues that Sophie's facing, like how to like she's saying, automation, things like that. How can we better support them?
Yeah, definitely. No, this is very very enlightening, very very good to hear. In just how much attention the Python SDK is getting, as well as, you taking notes of potential improvements and, basically just, scaling. Like it seems like we're at the point now where it's kind of off and running, and we need to start scaling with it. So yeah, so I've taken some notes down of kind of this and kind of what you have, kind of brought to our attention. And I think we can definitely work, Keith, you and I, maybe we can talk to Simi about this and maybe um, see if we want to put a resource on this, whether that's, another Hashgraph employee or LimeChain or whoever. Um, and then, yeah, I like also like the automation bots, I think are fantastic. Like that can be, like you said, used across Hiero. The yeah, obviously help with any newcomer to any new repo like would be fantastic. So yeah, yeah. So thank you for the presentation. This was very enlightening. And yeah, maybe I'll reach out to Hendrik with these as well, and see if maybe we can talk to Jessica and see what we can get rolling here. Yeah, Angie or Angelina. We cannot hear you if you're talking, though. You're unmuted.
Sure.
Oh, we heard that. Are you still with us?
Angie, if you do have a question, send it over to me. I'll be happy to answer that through Discord. You have my Discord already. Yeah, it looks like
Well,
we might have some sound issues.
so,
Keith?
well, just while we're waiting for her to come back. So, I mean, that was a question to you, Sophie, is that do you think, I mean, let's just, I'm not saying we will or we won't, but let's just say we did offer a semi or dedicated resource from Hashgraph to help with the Python SDK. Would that be a good or bad thing?
Yeah, so I would want to create some kind of sustainable way of scaling the Python SDK and Hiero in general. So yeah, if I could get a resource and they would be able to help automate things and help to identify gaps between the JavaScript and the Python SDK in an automatic way, but perhaps integrate with the TCK, that I think that would be really useful, not just in the short term, but that will continue to generate long-term benefits.
Okay. So my other thought, and maybe again, we can go back to Hendrik on this one. I think, if we look across all the Hiero projects, the Python SDK is obviously the most successful in that it's realizing the vision of Hiero, in that we're getting third-party contributors. So I actually think that would be great, Angie, if maybe we talk to Hendrik about maybe giving the same presentation to the TSC, because also I think at the same time, the issues you're facing are the same issues that we will increasingly face as we get more contributors, issues around training and knowledge and resourcing. So maybe this is something we can also bring to the TSC to get their thoughts and inputs, especially on the training side. Because yeah, I think training is a big one. How do we deal with that? How do we offer training to contributors? Because it's totally needed. And how do we do it in a scalable way? There's all of my thoughts, which I don't have answers to, but maybe we bring them up.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk with Hendrik about that as well too. Yeah.
I had a question regarding the PRs. I've noticed that in most of them, when they're submitted, they require maintainer approval in order to get through the rest of the workflows. Can we disable this so as to kind of speed up those integrations? That way we're not waiting for maintainers to approve those workflows and we can see right then and there kind of which checks are failing and which ones are passing.
Yeah, we do have the maintainer has to click certain workflows. That's in part because we require protection. But if we do an automated workflow bot, we can create the underlying tests to pull data in a safer way. And maybe not all of them will be able to be run automatically, but quite a few of them will be able to. So I think we could probably reduce that. And I understand we don't have a nice way of asking maintainers for a review. Like the review button seems to be quite hidden. No one uses that. And it's easy to assume that the maintainer will see changes and know that a review is required. So yeah, I agree. We have to improve that. We can talk about that on the Python SDK call. I'll write that down, Angie. I'm really sorry. I have to go because I have something else. But Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy that we were able to talk about this, and it looks like this will generate some more conversations. I appreciate all your help, sincerely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. Yeah, we'll definitely keep talking about this going forward. So, yeah, we're 5 past the hour, so I'll let you guys go. Thanks for joining. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you.